Many thanks to the organizers and the speakers and the audience. And congratulations on the anniversary of Altschuler. So the topic I'm going to speak on today is very tempting. The Altschuler's lighthouse or beacon and some considerations when you formulate the ideal final result. I will share my considerations as a result of my activities and analysis, what I came across, some features that, in my opinion, might be interesting when working with AI, and that will be useful. I'll skip the abstract if interesting. You might read it. So let's start with setting the objective. So we have a carrot as the target object, and then we have tools that this object will be exposed to, depending on the objective we have in mind. So first we have setting the objective and then a search for tools. So when we face a problem, what is important to solve this problem or achieve the final objective? So this is what I am going to speak on. So let's define the objective. It's a conscious image of the perfect imagined final result that must be achieved to satisfy a particular human need. The verbal expression of the desire begins with words I want to have. When you have a need, then you have to satisfy this need, and our consciousness is in the future, which is not present. And when we travel to the future, we see a positive result, final result of our desires. So obviously, the technical or artificial system is created or applied once the objective has been defined, and it is to be achieved to meet a particular human need. So artificial system is created or applied once the objective has been set, determined. And then we have to keep in mind this picture setting the objective. And afterwards, we select or create an instrument, a tool, and we have a diagram of events following one after each other, leading to the desired situation in the future. And all of a sudden, on the way to this situation, we have an obstacle, a problem that I call a harmful factor. So the situation of realization is not a standard way, and there is a powerful obstacle in the way. So that's the problem, a harmful factor. And then it's quite interesting to point out Francois Rochefoucauld says there are few things we should keenly desire if we really knew what we wanted. So you're in a trap when we are misled and follow the wrong path. So, for instance, a situation we cannot achieve the objective we set and the problem that we are facing, it is real. And I put this picture here, a gladiator, Retiarius. He has a weapon that he wants to use to get rid of the adversary, enemy, a net, and a pike. So the same is with us. So we have a problem, and this problem says, I am number one, and you have problems because of me, like Zekina and Angelica. Nicola love me, and the same happens here when we look at the problem, any problem situation that we have. So the dominating role is that the role of the problem. So, and this problem dominates the mind of the problem solver. And how to differentiate an objective is what I want to have, and a problem is what I do not want to have. So, a problem tells you you don't have to go anywhere. Why is it important to make a difference between objective and problem? So, we have a lot of traps in our world, and we may appear in an unpleasant situation. So, some false path, a mushroom.
And again, if it multiplies errors, this means that our consciousness becomes, intransparent, and that is why we get these challenges ahead of us. With that, we also have this definition, which is a false problem. Many of my colleagues studied false problems. For example, Gennady Ivanov did that. He has shown me a few times. I will show my own approaches related to how avoid those traps of false problems. I'd like to draw 3 examples when a problem solver's mind being dominated by a false problem. The majority of my TRIZ colleagues are aware of the situation described in Altschuler's book, To Find an Idea, and also this is described by the creators of Babakin, when Babakin, the general constructor, there was someone telling him they would need to postpone the launch of Luna 16 because with this lighting lamp, with this connection of the bottom and the upper part was broken because of some reason. Babakin responded that why do we need this top part? This was the functional approach. So we needed this top part to ensure vacuum. And again, do we have any issues with vacuum on the moon? So after that, they just removed the top part and sent it like that and launched the rocket, launched the spaceship. Again, that was a false problem because otherwise they could have spent time for designing. And then my second example was at one of my workshops in the Urals when there was an engineer telling me that he was sent to a workshop to solve a very complex problem, with this extrusion method with this profile part, which was curved, and they didn't know how to avoid that, how to remove that. They managed to do that by means of having this quick win solution to rectify this profile part, and they spent 4 hours on that when I participated in session two, the author of this problematic situation. He was like, are you going to continue that? I asked him, and he was like, no, because the problem was solved. He told me when I spoke with the shop manager, he told me that, again, there is this TRIZ method to check that a problem is false if there is this curving, which is bad. They phoned, they called the customer, then they visited the customer on site, and the customer was like, you know, there is nothing bad with that. We cut your profile parts to a shorter parts, and this result that we receive, we accept it. We like it. Instead of that one, they made an order of 10K pieces, and the production department faced this challenge to produce these profiles. That was another example when there was this false problem. The third example is about organization when there was a document to be signed. Again, the management spent a lot of time on that. One of the stakeholders there started looking the path of this document, where this document was sent, so he created this chronology out of that. And when it turned out that the document is being handed over, then the girl who accepts the document, she puts it on a shelf, and then the person supervising the process, he asks her where did you put the document there, and he saw that the shelf was full, and she filled different shelves with all these documents. Again, there was this outdated technology from the Soviet Union, there was the planning technologies. When the format was changed, when there were new economic relations with new owners, so those documents that were sent to the General Planning Department, they weren't needed, but anyway, they kept sending those documents to the General Planning Agency. Now, what should be done? Problematic situations, capture our solvers' awareness and consciousness. So maybe we could think of how to avoid this. Genry Halchuler has a solution there. He was like that inventive problem should have an indication of what should be there and what should we have as a result. So there is this red highlighting, which means that there is something we need to acquire. So we need to have a condition for that, and in these conditions, we will need to achieve a result. What do we want? What do we want to achieve? What will be the criteria for addressing the task that we want to solve? And after that, we get a completely different model. So we prioritize our goal, and the problem here is secondary. So we have this false problem. If it is false, you will need to move in the direction of the aim. Let us keep on and let us listen to Genry Halchuler. I hope that you will hear the sound. If not, just tell me if you can hear the sound. Now let us look at one of these steps. It's a very strange one. So we start solving a problem from the end, not from the start. So this is an algorithm which is an inventive algorithm, not an algorithm of a standard consciousness. We don't know the solution, the real solution, but we always want to imagine the end result, the final result, which is not achievable. That could be our dream of fantasy. We want this problem to be solved in such a way. So this understanding of the problem leads us to this area of strong solutions. Have you heard the sound, colleagues? Yes, we heard the sound. Thank you so much. Thank you, Maxim. Now,
Да, все было прекрасно слышно.
Спасибо, да, спасибо.
in this first
Таким образом,
situation, when
получается, если в первой ситуации,
we
тогда, когда мы попали
had
в
this
проблему,
problematic
мы считали,
situation
что мы все прекрасно
dominating the
попали, а проблема,
problem,
когда
it
появилась
captures our
в
awareness
сознании,
and our
она захватывает наше сознание, и тогда
purpose,
цель
our
расплывчатости
goal. It becomes vague.
исчезает.
To avoid that,
Вот для
we
того,
would
чтобы этого
want to
не
have
было,
this very
необходимо всего,
specific
прежде всего, иметь
wording
очень
for
четко
the goal to be able
сформулированные
to
цели, ради которых
solve
мы будем
this
решаться и работать
problem
или
by
там
means of analysis and
устранять
taking other steps. So the first thing
анализируя
we need to
другие
do
шаги такие.
is to focus
Поэтому первое,
on
что нужно сделать,
setting the
акцентировать
goal and
на постановке
striving
цели. В
for a
идеальной
perfect
конечной
result.
конdiции.
There is a perfect
Если
result and there is a
идеальной
perfect
конечной
solution which
результата, то
follows
что
this result
идеальное
after we
решение? Идеальное решение это потом уже, когда
solve
мы с
the
задачей
problem.
будем работать. А
But
на начальном
we want
этапе
to think that
в
we
нашем сознании
acquire,
у нас
that we
был
strive for a
идеальный
perfect
конечный
result.
результат. Ну, примеры. Вот
Now, you all
я
know
сегодня вот добавил просто вот этот слайд.
the
Все вы
myth
знаете,
about
наверное, древнегреческий
Ariadne's
миф, нить
need when there was a Minotaur. There were 7 girls sent to the Minotaur every year, and Tesei, the hero, he wanted to free these ladies. And after that, when he started doing that, he wanted to fight the Minotauros, Taurus, and the beautiful Ariadne fell in love with him. So how to address this problem, how to solve it? He will go to the labyrinth with many passages, with many transfers. Why and what should he do out of that? So she gave him this this net, and then he used this net of fiber to be able to find a way back out of the labyrinth, together with the ladies that he salvaged. Many of you are here at the conference. You faced many problem situations, and if a problem is not false, you need to take the root and cause approach. So perform this RCA. And then there is another example. Imagine that you want to explore a cave. You don't know the length of the cave. This is not about 5 wives or 500 wives or something else, which is there. There are many passages that are very unexpected, and our consciousness is that we prioritize the problem. So the Minotaurus that we want to reach is that problem. So we are now in these dark passages, and we don't know the direction our consciousness, is being overwhelmed by challenges. What do we do about it? My understanding is that we need to be based on the final result. If we have this perfect result ahead of us, it will always be a beacon of light guiding us through the process. However, our analysis is deep. We will understand our purpose. Why are we there? And what do we want to get out of that? So, and again, this fiber of Ariadne may work like that. This is similar. This is an equivalent of how we can avoid problematic situations and address and solve problems. My recommendations, first of all, when you start analyzing a problem, you need to formulate your ideal end result. How do you do that? Imagine an ideal picture, an ideal process, an ideal result out of that. So we don't know how to achieve it, but in your head, you would want to have this end goal which you need to strive for, and you need to have this image of your ideal purpose, ideal goal, and ideal result. If you have it, you will be moving to your goal more efficiently, and you will be very close to reaching this perfect state. What kind of mistakes are possible when we formulate an ideal result? We can be influenced by a problem, by an issue. I want to avoid an issue. I have conducted several experiments when these problematic situations were described. We described situations, but we couldn't formulate the ideal result. We set the problem, but this goal was not ideal because there is this problem which overwhelms our thinking. How do we do that, and what are those methodological recommendations that are possible out of these endeavors? You need to be able to check if a problem is false. What prevents us from achieving the goal? This is one of the criteria. The second criteria is another powerful one, whether this problem prevents us from achieving the goal, or is it something else? Sometimes we are overwhelmed by stereotypes when there is a prominent authority with that having their own stereotypes, and this might send you on a false path. Babaking used another example, whether if we don't address the issue, if we don't solve the problem, what should happen? And we had this question in the chat today. What happens if we don't solve the problem? Our colleagues working with prompts, with forming messages to AI and creating roadmaps, my recommendation for you will be to set a task for AI so that it could formulate the end perfect result without those removing bad circumstances. When you check those criteria recommended by AI, you will be able to have it compare on its own those recommendations that are available with the ideal end result that will be formulated at the initial stage. A few examples. Genuine problem. This can be used to solve a problem. There is another example from my Korean practice. You have 7 minutes left. I will just enumerate a number of examples quite quickly. There are some household situations, and again, the goal setting itself is important, whether it is correct or incorrect. Incorrect goal setting leads to a problematic goal. Here we have an example. I don't want to have injured fingers on my hand when hammering a nail into a wall. This is incorrect. There is a correct example, and there is one more thing between the two. When we have a perfect goal and a problematic goal. If we have it, then it is easier to formulate the administrative recommendation based on Altschuler's recommendation. I want to have the IFR, but I don't know how to eliminate the problem. I want to have an ideal goal, but I don't know how to avoid the problematic goal or objective. If we combine them, we have this administrative contradiction. There is another example with this lamp, which is very simple, not to spare the time, not to lose the time. I won't be focusing on that too extensively. Again, if a builder injures his fingers with a hammer, the perfect aim, what do we want to have as a result? I want to have a nail, in a wall, and my problematic goal is that I don't want to injure my fingers while working on the nail. I want to have the nail in the wall, but I don't know how to avoid this injury. Then after that, we will need to look for solutions and use different ways to address the goal. There is another example, which is quite simple. I would like to skip it, and then after that I will focus on conclusions. Initially, we analyze problematic situations, and very often initial situations create encumbrances for achieving success. A few examples here and with conclusions you see in the slide. You will be able to familiarize yourself with them. Thank you, Mr. Gafitulin. Your examples were very true to life. We have a number of questions for Marat. Those goals set by people, are they objective or are they just a wish? Well, I would split that into two parts in goal setting, where we have this subjective image, with those subjective image of what you have, what you want to avoid. You want to come your first, for example. This is the first thing. The second thing is if our goal is insubjective, when it is said by someone else, if someone sends you to drink some water, but you are not thirsty, but again, if it is something you must do, then you need to understand whose wish is that, whether it's subjective or not. A person in his own, at his own level, if a person does that, then this goal is subjective. If you accept a goal from somewhere else, it becomes objective because you, out of that, get the responsibility and assume responsibility on what must be done. If it's not your goal, but you must do that, then it is something different. This works differently, of course. And I should try and understand the objectiveness of this one. Thank you. There are some comments and appreciations. Mikhail Semyonovich is telling us that if you're hungry, then this means this is objective reality. Well, it is still a question whether you are hungry or not. If there is another person who's hungry too, then, well, it's not obvious. It's not obvious at all. Subjective perception in this case might be true. We had a very interesting input yesterday delivered by Alexander Tokarev regarding the example he drew in his work with AI. Looking at my message, my point I'm trying to make, those areas with transporters when they are broken and when you need to improve efficiency and performance, whether you need to do that or not. Maybe you should take this path. So we need to focus on that. Right here, in some situations when there is this side area which we don't touch with this scraper, maybe we could turn it into a benefit. So this material we're working with, it could, freeze and become this barrier to the system, or otherwise those components may work better if we put something in the middle part of the transporter. Then we get those barriers preventing the material from falling. So this is what we have. We need to believe it. And we need to believe someone who sets such a goal. And in such a case, he will take ownership to be able to make these things larger. But this should be backed up by something as a groundwork. So, and again, we need to check it.